we did try to figure out who our audience was.
And our lemma in Spanish is there's no small question.
Right, right.
Maloka is a science center and a museum. So we always say that we have two different t-shirts so we can work as...
Warm welcome to you all. This is SAi TV, The Insight. I'm your host, Fanuel Wendy. Today, we're going to have a special report on a recent expedition I took to Bogota, Colombia, to meet and engage with the local science engagement and education leaders, in addition to founders in the area. This trip is part of our annual expeditions, which we take to diverse locations around the world to connect, promote, learn, engage, and exchange ideas with those involved in science education and engagement on the ground. For this trip, we're thankful to have made many new friends in Bogota, which we hope to build in the coming months and years ahead. This trip would not be possible without the generous support of our individual donors, and we're so thankful for their support to help continue the work of the Institute. To begin with, as Fareed Zakaria would say, here is my take. What I've come to learn from my expeditions around the world is that a lot of science engagement and education initiatives are driven by pure passion. And these are initiatives outside of the traditional classroom. There's little funding, time, equipment, and so much more that is missing. However, the audience is there. They are ready, and they're willing to engage. And the audience is diverse, from the young to the old. They want to have conversations. They want to explore. They want to learn and to connect. The leaders of these initiatives are truly courageous. They use the energy from the audiences to press on despite the challenges, to continue to strengthen the connections between people and science. And they need our support more than ever right now. They need the visibility. As we emerge from this pandemic, it is those whom we here at SAi TV want to continue to support and make more visible. And so with that, let us get started. Our expedition begins actually in New Zealand. Of course, that was a virtual trip where we talked with the co-founder of Clubes de Ciencia, Colombia, Brian Avendano, who just happened to be doing his PhD in New Zealand. In that discussion, we got to learn a lot about the founding and running of Science Clubs Colombia. And one particular insight involved how they're thinking about impact. Have a listen. What do you guys do down there?
Well, Science Clubs Colombia, Clubes de Ciencia Colombia in Spanish, it's a Colombian initiative that scientists from all over the world come back to the country, and we conduct 1 week STEAM education projects with the students in rural areas. So we are scientists who are from Colombia, and we're studying in our PhDs, our master's degrees abroad, and we want to come back to the country for 1 week. And during that week, we work with the students in rural and remote areas of the country, and we pass from the research question to the presentation to the community of results of a scientific project. So in 1 week, the students experience what it is to be a scientist, what it is, they taste a little bit what it is to be thinking as a scientist, doing science and technology, and of course, learning by the process, some scientific process, a big impact. We have doing so far 500 clubs in 30 sites of the country, different rural, remote areas, urban areas of Colombia. And also we have impacted more than 10,000 students. It's not just 1 week, it can happen also in the week of January, like when the students have vacation holidays, and also in October, where the students also have another holidays. So we have 2 weeks on different places, and yeah, the scientists join us from all over the world. I'm in New Zealand, but we have scientists in Europe, Asia, America, all around Latin America.
And what kind of feedback are you getting from students? What are they telling you from their experience?
Well, going back to how we evaluate our success, is we ask them what was the experience about, how was the experience for them, and if we see in our metrics a change on their mindset to how they perceive science. For example, we have kids who, I want to do a PhD, don't even know what's a PhD sometimes, because they see that, wow, I want to be like him, I want to be like her, and this is important because we have the policy of gender, we advocating women to be also part of our team. Basically, the impact is a kid who doesn't know anything about what a scientist is, how we work. After the science week, they want to be a scientist. That's basically our metrics.
Welcome back. Watch the full interview with Brian by subscribing to SAi TV. So, as we started our expedition, we packed our bags and took the trip from Providence to Bogota, roughly 8-hour flight through Florida onto Bogota. Our first stop was, after we landed, was to Universidad de los Andes, or the University of the Andes, which is a private research university located right next to Monserrate Hill, which is a popular tourist destination offering fantastic views of Bogota and a place for reflection. It is here we connected with Brian Matias and Daniel Guterres, who are the student directors of the Grupo Uniandino de Ornitología. We had a fantastic conversation about the roughly multiple decade-old student group and their science engagement work, and toured an exhibit of the Natural History Museum on campus they had recently helped set up. Their passion is palpable, and I'm thankful they took time from their studies to meet with me. Here's part of that exchange.
Well, that's a very interesting question. I think that our main focus and purpose of this group is to give the people the the power to be empowered of their birds, because Colombia is the number one country in terms of bird species. So we want the people to be able to know that and be empowered of what they have, right? So yeah, I think that's our main focus, and also to develop birding skills, which is required. You don't see the bird and that's all. You have to have a little set of skills, and we want to teach the people. So our public, it's mainly students, but the students for all over the careers, the majors.
Many different majors, not only biology.
Yeah, so we want to let them that. We want the people to know the amount of biodiversity we have here. That's our main goal.
Yeah.
And your location, you're located at the foothills, right?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Tell me about that. How does that help you?
Well, that is a great advantage that we have here in the university, because our campus is not that big, but it has a lot of green. And being by the foothill of the Andes, which are considered one of the greatest hotspots of bird biodiversity in the world, not only in the amount of species that we can find, of net species, but also on the amount of species that take over in each side. So the species that we can see in the Andes here in Bogota, we're at 2,600 meters above sea level, will be very different than the ones that will be found just 500 meters lower or higher. So being by the foothill is very advantageous in that sense, because we get over 70 species on our campus, and many of them are adapted or know how to dwell in an urban environment. So we can show the public a lot of species and a lot.
Welcome back. Stay tuned for the full interview with Brian and Daniel in the upcoming weeks. And so we continue with the expedition by meeting with Dr. Vicky Fleisches, a PhD graduate of the University of Los Andes, who is one of the founders of the recently launched Bichos.team. The link is below, which does science workshops for kids in addition to selling science kits that enable kids to do experiments and so much more. And if that's not enough, she, along with two of her friends, also run science podcasts for children called El Microscopio podcast, where they answer complex questions from kids. Their tagline, under the microscope, there's no small question. The exchange with Vicky was notable given she's an early stage founder of a science engagement initiative in the Bogota science engagement ecosystem. And as we here at SAi love to connect with early stage founders, we know how difficult it can be getting off the ground. Here is part of our exchange with Dr. Fleisches.
So let's get right to it. We're here in Bogota, Colombia, and it's been wonderful to get to know about the ecosystem of science engagement here. And so I came across Bichos.team, a Microscopia podcast that you run. So we're going to talk about them today, okay? Right, so let's just start off. Bichos.team, where did that idea come from?
The idea came from the pandemic because with my friend, we started like doing experiments with our kids. Both we are moms, we have two kids, and we started like doing experiments. So then people start asking us, how do you do the experiments? What material you use? So we think that it was a good thing to share this with other families and other kids, and we start like that from the pandemic.
And then Microscopio podcast, because you do this at the same time, right? Together.
Yeah, the Microscopio, the idea like is from 2019.
Okay.
And with my friend, we have kids. So she has a kid, and they ask many questions. So we also like ask why we can answer those questions in a nice way, like very like with rigorous way. I don't know how to say that, but easy to they understand what the explanation. So we found women that work in each topic to explain us. So we don't answer the questions because we are not experts on every topic. So we found women that help us to answer the questions. And the kids have many good questions. And our like lema in Spanish is there's no small question.
Right,
so we try to answer.
And I love the fact you're focusing on kids, right? 3 to 9 years old.
Yeah.
Why that age range? Why do you think it's important to target them in particular?
Yeah, I think because later they're not so interested in science, and because at these early ages they're not like shy, and they ask many questions, and they also like present their hypotheses, but they are not shy and they say everything. So it's like in these ages, and we need like to promote this curiosity, and also I think it's very nice. And one thing that I notice is when they're like young, they're like 50-50 girls and boys, but then it's mostly boys, and I don't understand what happened, in which like point girls like think that they are not good for science.
Right. So that's hence your targeting.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed those scenes. Our next stop in our expedition took us to Maloka Museo Interactivo, which is an interactive science museum featuring a wide variety of exhibits that explore diverse topics in science and technology, in addition to running one of their beloved programs called SAi, which is a joint initiative between the Ministry of Information and Communication Technologies and the Maloka Cooperation. The 12-week virtual program, and this I quote, focuses on the development of scientific skills and attitudes through synchronous meetings with peers and program mediators, self-training guides arranged on an educational platform, and mentoring sessions with women, scientists, scientific kids, and so much more, end quote. Do check them out. The link is below if you are interested. Here's part of my exchange with the Director of Corporate Management and Projects at the museum, Manuela Jaramillo, and her colleague and Chicas.team Program Lead, Diego Corrales, where we talked about the museum and how they're thinking about the meaning of impact for Chicas.team.
This is Manuela Jaramillo, and so we're going to get to learn a little bit more about Maloka, the museum itself and some of its programming. So thank you so much for hosting me.
No, thank you so much for visiting us.
Yes. So tell me, Maloka, what is it about? What are you guys trying to do here?
Maloka is a science center and a museum. So we always say that we have like two different t-shirts, so we can work as a science center to promote all the knowledge about technology, innovation, but also a museum. So we try to combine those things together to try to make like an impact on the society, trying to work with specific topics like climate change or migration. We have a very beautiful exhibition here that it's called like Migrar es un acto de valor. Migration is like a very brave act to do.
I see.
We also have another exhibition that it's called La Ciencia del Asco, like the Guacala La Ciencia del Asco, like can be translated like something very grass, but it's like the science of the disgusting things. So it's very
and who's coming here to these, or at least who do you hope that is coming to the museum? And the
we like
Science
to
Center?
work with students from I think 3rd grade until
I see.
11. So we have different different rooms. We have exhibitions, temporary exhibitions, and labs.
I see.
So we have different kinds of visit, like the way we can do it. We work very close to the mayor. So we have a program that it's called Maloka Puertas Abiertas. So it's like open doors, Maloka as an open doors, and we work with public schools.
I see.
And people with with low, in Colombia it's called like stratos, like medium, low, and high. So they medium and low can enter free Maloka. They just have to bring something that shows that you are like in a low level of income. So that's our main public. We also have, because we are now, the center is like getting very, very short because we have a lot of people coming to us. So we have like mini Malokas. There is like traveling exhibitions.
I see.
So we can go, we have been to San Andres. We also went to Ecuador. So we try to go like around Colombia. And we also are promote projects, different kind of projects to different type of allies or institutions. So that's why we start to work with the Ministry of Communications, MINTIC, and we have this program that is called Bichos.team.
Bichos.team.
We have been doing this program for 3 years now.
So I'm curious, how do you think about impact, whether it's through the projects, the individual projects, or the Science Center itself, Maloka? Curious how you guys think about that.
Okay. In my perspective about impact, in 3 years of developing the project now, it's around the transformation of the perspectives and the auto-recognition in the girls about her capabilities, her knowledge.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that exchange. And again, more of these conversations will be posted later on our channel. And so we continued on our expedition as the week came to a close, and time really did fly by so quickly. So we went back to the University of the Andes to meet with Professor Carlos Guarnizo, who's a biologist and is interested in the processes and mechanisms that promote the diversity of frogs. If that is not enough, he's also the creator of a number of science engagement and initiatives, and this was actually very, very impressive. This included the Ciencia Café para Sumercé, Ciencia Divulga, Sumercé Kids, and he's also the co-creator and host of the television program Busters. Now, you thought that was enough? Nope. He also directs the communication strategy of the Natural History Museum at the University of Los Andes. I was truly lucky as I managed to talk with both him and his wife, Professor Caitlin May, who teaches courses in the Department of Languages and Culture and is actively involved in supporting Science Café. Here is part of our exchange.
So we went with Kate. I remember the first time we were like very nervous. Like we are so bad organizing events. We are so bad speaking. Like we don't know what to do. Okay, let's because in that there's a website called Nova, and they gave us like tips how to start a science cafe. One of the tips is the first thing you need to know to find out is where to do the science cafe. Where? Hopefully not in campus, because some people don't want, especially this one is closed, it's a private university, so people cannot get in. And also
Except for the exhibits.
Except for the exhibits. It's really cool exhibit right now. So, but I can tell you about this later. So we wanted to okay, let's do it outside. Hopefully in a bar where people can drink beer, eat something, and listen a panel of people talking about science. That would be so cool. So we went to a place like 3 blocks from here. I remember we got in. We never seen the place before. We got in and then we saw like a stage, and they had microphones and they had lights and they sell beer and food and they feed a lot of people. That this is the place. So we went to the owner and said, "Hey, we're interested in using this place. Do you rent it or something? Like, can we use it?" And she like, "What kind of event do you want to do?" It's a science event. And she was immediately, no. Science? I don't like science. This place is for culture, arts, poetry, dance. I don't really like science. I don't think this is going to work. And I told her like, that's why we want to do it here, because it disassociates. It breaks it's more likely that people that maybe things that they don't like science, or maybe they don't know about science, they will get in looking for culture or arts, and then they might listen to people talking about science, and maybe they might engage.
So who's coming to the events?
A lot of people. Some students of biology, some people that are connected to science, but a lot of people who are not, like yoga teachers, architects, like all kind of people, because we asked, we had some formats.
We have some data.
Yeah, we have some data, right?
It was a lot of biology students, but also a lot of people from all, variety of pursuits.
And we asked them like, how do you find out about this event? Why are you here? And they're like, no, I just wanted to have a beer. I sat here and they were talking about this thing, and it was like a funny thing. I stayed and I liked it. So we asked the owner, can we do this? And she was reluctant, like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it once to see what happens. Almost like 400 people got there the first time. It was about birds of this area. And she was so excited, the owner, like, okay, so are we going to do this every month, please? So that's how we continue every month, one event.
Since when?
Since 2017. Yeah.
And it was kind of cool because they had, we normally did it there Wednesdays, and after that was open mic. So people would start filtering in for open mic at the end, and they'd be asking questions at the end, like, oh, I heard you mention this. Like, how is that connected to?
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting that we had like a second wave, the second crowd came in, and they were engaged as well. And, like, kind of cool.
How do you think about it?
So we did kind of try to figure out who our audience was. We would like it to move to even more diversity in terms of, we love having science students there, of course, but, to keep moving towards having more and more variety of people. I wish I had the statistics for you right now, but we could find them.
Yeah.
I guess one of the easy ways to measure impact is YouTube views too, because that's the other side that we haven't touched on yet. But that's one way to, I guess, measure impact, is to say how many times was this interview viewed? Maybe the tenor of the comments. But yeah, other than that,
Yeah,
we
so
at the event though, right? I'm curious.
Oh, yeah. So
dialogue happening. I'm just curious how you.
So we measure impact, I think, directly with the we pass around some surveys, and we ask them some questions about their view on the events. But also you can measure impact on the questions, how many people come, how often they come. So that's one way. Another is that I think is even more important is when people connect to us and they say that they are teachers from outside Bogota in a small region, and they are connected with our initiative.
What advice do you have for them?
I think it's a great question. I think the most important thing is wanting to do it. Why? Because sometimes I also teach here scientific communication since then, and I talking with the students, asking questions. I like why, like if you have a good idea, why don't you start? And then they said like because I want it to be perfect before starting, or I don't have the money. It looks very difficult to do. I don't have the expertise. So in our case, it has been a process. When we started, we didn't know how to do anything. When I see the first videos that we did, I cannot see them. They're horrible. Oh my God, it's a torture. And I hope that in 10 years I see what I'm doing now, and I would say the same, like because that means that we are improving.
Welcome back again. Check SAi TV for the full exchange. As you can imagine, this is only a subset of what is a thriving science engagement community in Bogota. All those I talk with express a lot of enthusiasm about the future, despite some of the headwinds, with funding being a major source of concern, as in many places. As Professor Guarnizo said, the passion is what is fueling a lot of the work in this space, and I agree. It is a necessary component, for sure. But as we all know, it isn't sufficient. And we need funders, donors, and other stakeholders to step up and provide more support to the creators running these initiatives around the world as they seek to strengthen the connections between STEM and society. The investment is truly worth it. SAi Funding plans to continue engaging the community there in Bogota in the upcoming months and years. And in fact, we have another interview scheduled in the upcoming weeks with another creator of a science engagement initiative in Bogota. And so with that, this wraps up Expedition 13. And I would like to thank you all for joining me on this special report. And I'll leave you with some of the local sounds from Bogota. Enjoy, and I will see you in the next video. This is SAi TV. From Bogota, this is Fanuel for SAi TV.